When I left school, well, had been circumstances why I hadn't taken the exams when I should have taken them. And so actually, when I left school, I had literally nothing educationally. And I started work in a textile firm, and we bought yarn. We arranged for it to be woven. We arranged for the cloth to be made, and then subsequently to be dyed and to have designs printing on it and that sort of thing. And I learned a great deal all about the textile trade and that sort of thing. It was a very interesting job actually, but of course the thing was, as I say, I had no education, so I decided that I'd got to remedy that situation. So I went to evening classes 5 nights a week after work. I went to different evening classes to improve my general knowledge and also knowledge of the textile trade. And I was really very happy in that, but of course the war came and changed everything. Well, it changed everyone's life, of course. And at about that time, we were bombed. When St Paul's Cathedral was bombed, our offices were only about 200 yards away, and our office was really more or less destroyed, and we had to find somewhere else to operate. And there was a firm up in north of England who used to do the dyeing of our materials, and they offered us accommodation in their factory. They had one part of the factory which wasn't being used, so they offered us that as an office, and that's where I went. My boss, he would go out, getting orders and making all those sort of arrangements, and I kept all the records of where the material was, because you had to keep a check on it, because otherwise you'd be, you'd lose a lot of your stock if you weren't careful. And I had a desk in there to work on. Every day there was a young lady used to come through, taking office material from one office to another, and I got chatting to her, and I asked her on one occasion, whether she'd like to come to the pictures. And at any rate, to cut a very long story short, yes, she agreed that she would come to the pictures with me, and that's when Lucy and I started going out together. And at that time, of course, I was deciding that I really needed to do, or wanted to do, something more positive with my life, and so I decided that I would go to this epileptic colony as well, where my friend Cyril had gone. So I went to see them, and yes, I could, they were quite pleased to have someone who's volunteered to come there. It wasn't a very nice job for people to do. A lot of the time I was working in the children's home, and these were children under 8 years of age, and they had been epileptic, of course, since they were babies, and they had always been mollycoddled by their parents, and they were very difficult children. They'd come to the colony because the parents couldn't cope with them anymore. It was all boys, the section I worked with, and these children in their sort of, well, 4, 5, 6, 7, that sort of age group, they had never played. No one had ever taught them how to play, because they were always protected by their families, who were frightened of them having a fit and injuring themselves. So we started playing games with them, and in addition to that, I mean, you can't go on playing games, you know, for the whole day, especially during the winter time. So we started doing painting with them, and drawing and painting, and this became quite a successful thing to do, because they'd never been allowed to do anything like that at home. So we used to have painting groups in the evenings when it was too dark to go out and play, and it was very successful. Well, I was on night duty at one time, and at night the medical superintendent used to do a tour of the colony and visit each of the different houses to make sure that, you know, there were no problems or anything like that. And I was seeing him out at the door one night, and we were talking about various things in connection with the colony and so on. And he said to me, I think really with your sort of interests, it would be a good idea if you trained as an occupational therapist. Well, I'd never heard of such a thing before. When I started making inquiries and got literature from the professional body and learned how they were using creative activities as a form of treatment, I thought, well, that does sound very good. That's the sort of thing which would appeal to me. And anyway, I pursued the idea, and ultimately made an application to go to the training college. It was, I mean, nowadays, of course, it's a part of a university, but in those days it wasn't. I don't know quite how I find out that if you were a state-registered nurse, you could shorten the training period, because it would mean that you'd got a fair degree of information about medical matters. So I thought, all right, I'll do it like that. I'll train as a male nurse first, and then I can have the benefit of a year's exemption on my occupational therapy training. So that's why I started working as a nurse. So that's how I got into occupational therapy. It was because it appealed to me, the idea of having the interest of some particular type of creative activity which could be linked up with the clinical needs of the patient, and I thought this was you know, a very good idea. I still think it's a very good idea.